Welcome to one of the most interesting videos we've ever done.
I'm Devin, the D and DK.
I'm Kevin, the K and DK Custom Products. So this exciting subject is something Devin and I have been working together for, I think we're at 18, 19 years now.
Somewhere in that area.
And I don't even know how many patents we have. We're in the 10 to 15 range of patents we have. Of stuff that we've come up with and patented. And what we're going to talk about today is how we go about developing parts, how they go from an idea to on our website. So some things we're going to cover today is why we only make parts we'd run on our own bikes. We're going to cover how we decide if a part is worth making. We're going to talk about what kind of testing goes into our parts before we ever put them up for sale. And we're going to say why the importance of parts being easy to install and talk about our lifetime warranty. And then we're going to look a little bit of evolution of just one idea of one part to give you an idea of how that goes. So the first thing is why we only make parts that we would run on our own bikes.
Maybe another way to say that is, how do we decide if a part's worth developing? That's kind of answering the question. Is it something that we would run on our own bikes? It has to kind of fit that for us to, want to develop that part. Because if we wouldn't run on our own bike, then, what are we doing? Like we don't believe in it, so we don't, there's no need to go forward.
There have been parts. Do you remember that little thing that we tested? We were in the dyno room. We had rented the dyno room for the whole day, and it was freezing cold. I don't remember which shop it was at, and we thought for sure this thing's going to really make a lot of power.
Yep.
And we tested and tested and tested. We tried everything to make that thing make power, and it didn't. And at the end of 2 hours of trying some configuration, we go, well, that's going in the trash. And I literally threw it into the trash can.
Yep.
And we haven't, if it's not a good part, even if it looks like it would be good, that part looked like it was going to
really perform.
Yeah. And it made sense. When you look at it, you saw what it would be doing. You go, that's going to make more power. And it would have been easy to sell because other people would have looked at it and go, that's going to make more power. It did not make more power. Into the trash it went.
Yeah.
So part of it is we're constantly getting new bikes. I've lost count of how many Harleys I've had. You're...
4.
4 of them, and I'm probably somewhere around 8 or 10. And this is just since we've started the business. So when we get a new bike, we're always, both of us, looking for ways to improve it. It doesn't matter how nice it is. We always figure, how can we make it better, more comfortable, handle better, more power, sound better. And so that's the starting point is when we get a new bike, what do we want to do to it?
Well, yeah, where are some weaknesses? Where can we improve things? Even if something isn't wrong, can we make it better? These types of things are what the questions that get asked.
Yeah. And so then, that's how the company started is I wanted a part for my bike that I wanted some parts from a bike that I just couldn't get elsewhere. People promised, they never shipped. And so I asked Devin to make them. And that was literally how the company started is I needed some parts for my bike that I was having a hard time. So, and that's how we've continued up to this point. So there's a few things that we look at when we look at a part. We look around and go, is someone else already making the part?
or making a solution to the problem. It doesn't necessarily have to be the part,
but are they making a
solution?
And if they are, and it's a quality part, and it's a reasonable price, and the company's reliable in shipping the part, there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. So we're going to use their part. Just like on the dipstick oil stick, we've not made any because Jess Customs is a good, reliable source for them, and we just use theirs. Now, if there were none, then we would probably look at developing one. I know you mentioned the whole catch can thing and how that came about.
Yeah, you mean to go back into that?
Yeah.
Here? All right, so there was a company that was making catch cans, and they had a big supply issue. We couldn't get them anymore. And
so they were making catch cans, and we were selling their catch cans because we liked the looks. We were running on our own bikes. But then
we were, and I do want to say for fairness, we were modifying them slightly, but it was easy to do that in modification, and that's how we provided it. But when the supply chain issues happened, we couldn't get them anymore. And there I was, well, we got to start making them now. What are we going to do? Well, even though we were reselling that one, it was a good product, but that was kind of like forcing us to reinvent the wheel. And I didn't want to just, copy somebody else's stuff or just do something that 100 other companies have done. And then, my next question was, well, how am I going to make this better? And if that supply chain issue had never been a problem,
we'd still be selling
those probably.
Right.
But in having to do that got me thinking of how it could be better if, there's no limitations when you're designing something yourself. So what can I do within the limitations that I have, not what limitations I have with what somebody else is supplying me. So that's when the 4-stage filtration system basically got born there in that particular event.
Yeah. So that's what we look at that. The other thing that we look at is it made in the USA? And it doesn't have to be made in the USA, but that sort of does weigh in, have some factor in the decision-making process of whether or not we're going to sell a part made by somebody else, and not and maybe it is a good design and everything, but it's not made in the USA. Maybe it's made really inexpensively, or the supply chain is iffy. Then that's when we do like what we did with the catch can. Another thing is, any part that we make has a lifetime warranty. So when we're looking at designing a part, we don't want to put a part on our bike that's going to break, and we're putting our money where our mouth is, and we're saying we're making quality parts and we're backing it up with a lifetime warranty. Are we saying that there's never a claim? No. Every now and then, one of our parts does break, and we immediately replace it. Not if it broke because someone was in an accident and crushed it or something, but if it broke, if it failed, we immediately replace it. So the part has to be durable and stand up to be able to have a lifetime warranty. The other big thing is it easy to install? There's been parts that we've made for each of our bikes that are on our bikes that we like, but they were not easy to install. We couldn't figure out a way to make it easy to install. And as most of you know, if you've done business with us, we have extremely good customer service. But if there's a part that's just going to be a nightmare to install, it's going to be hard to provide good customer service for that part. So it has to be easy to install.
Yeah. I think we ought to address, some of the things that we do in testing to making sure the parts are good enough, such as, our floorboard relocations. I mean, we would get, a lot of weight, a heavier person, however you want to say that, and then literally jump up and down on it and try to break it, like literally trying to break the part.
I know that when we did the floorboards, when we came up for the floorboards for the Sportsters and the Dynas, It has a very unique steel adapter. I'm going, that thing's tiny. I mean, what's going to happen if a 300 or 400 pound person, uses their floorboard to stand on to mount onto the bike? And
that's when we do that. Yeah, we actually try it.
and so we got a pretty heavy guy to literally stand on the floorboard and jump up on and down on it.
And that's only on one side, so not actually imitating a person standing up, which is divided by two.
Yeah, and of course, like with our shocks, you saw, if you've seen the video, we'll put a link to it up here where we talk about it. But I mean, we went through 2 years of development on the shocks. So there's just a lot of riding. We have test circuits, and then we do trips and just ride and get different people's opinions and how it feels, and of course our own. And now we have the shock dynamometer, which is different than the dyno that you put the bikes on to measure the torque and the horsepower. This actually is measuring what is happening on the inside in the valving of the shock. What other kind of
foot pegs, kind of going back to them. I mean, that is one of the things that is literally supporting you if you would decide to stand up. I remember back early on when we developed one of the first foot pegs that we ever come out with, I literally bolted it to about 1,000-pound table and stood on it, obviously, and jumped on it, and didn't budge at all. Well, I wanted to know if what's going to fail. I'll try to make something fail so I can see what failure mode it's going to use. So I literally beat this foot peg with a sledgehammer until it bent 90 degrees, and the weld never broke.
The weld never broke, yeah. No. So we do and I think like on our oil filter relocations, I'm pretty sure I ran oil filter relocation for close to a year. I think it was... Yeah, it was either 11 or 13 months. It was either just under a year or just over a year that I ran that on 2 different bikes for that whole time to make sure that not only was it delivering the benefits of the oil filter relocation and being able to have an oil cooler on a twin cool bike, but that there were no issues. There was not anything going to fatigue over time. That there just weren't going to be any issues with it. We're not going to put something out that we have not tested and know that it's going to hold up to whatever a rider is going to throw at it, short of an accident.
Yeah, well, we discussed some of the ways that we would test products and the way that we developed them kind of maybe early on, but we've kind of changed a little bit. We don't exclude any of the old ways in destructive testing, but like making parts, seeing if they fit, development process. We get a 3D printer. We can actually print them in plastic and make sure that they are doing what we want to accomplish, make sure they fit. What is the aesthetics of them? Do they look like we want them to? What can we change here and there? Very easily with a 3D printer instead of actually having to make it out of metal, which can take weeks.
Yeah, and I know that we're not going to say what it is. I took pictures the other day, and I wanted to post them in my day in the life thread on the forums, but it's going to be a month or longer before this comes out, and there might be some changes. But every time I go through and look at your bike in the reception area, I see that part that is plastic printed that you did. You're testing it, and you've been riding on it with the plastic printed to see how it does and checking all the installation process, but it's with plastic printed rather than metal, which is much easier for you to do, right?
Yeah, to develop. Like I can create a 3D model and hit print on the printer and come back the next morning and there's a part there, where I don't know if any CNC guys are out there. It's a whole lot different making one part, and then having one change at the end of it can drastically change everything in the process. Fixtures, just a lot of things change there. And it sucks to go down that road and then have some minute change that just kills all the work you just did. So printing it out of plastic first is a very easy way to speed up that R&D.
And you have another tool that you bought.
Oh, which one are you referring to now?
The scanner. The
3D
scanner.
Yeah. So as Harley has gotten more, there's just more stuff compact, just crammed onto the bike. There used to be a lot of space to develop parts. Like there's plenty of room here to put this coil relocation. Well, now it just seems like everything's getting packed in there with all these computers and sensors and all this stuff. And it just gets a lot harder to design a part that will accomplish what we're wanting it to accomplish without interfering with something else that's on it or some moving part. So we got the 3D scanner, and we can actually scan and have a 3D model of the bike.
So it's like a wand, or?
Yeah, it's like I guess you could call it a wand. But yeah, you just wave it around kind of like a wand in front of it, and it just builds a 3D model. And then in our CAD software that we use, I can put that model in there as a reference, and then I can build off of that, therefore verifying that it's going to actually fit as a finished product.
Rounded contours and different kinds of angles, to try and figure out where the bolts would have to go into a part that would fit into that space is close to impossible just using a measuring tape or micrometer or anything.
Well, we did it.
You can just scan.
Case in point, used to it was easy to develop an air cleaner or get a bolt pattern from that. I mean, you're looking at flat surfaces. Your heads are flat. Your intake, your throttle body would be flat with that. So you're not messing with complex angles. And on these new bikes, the intake is actually I forget the exact number, but it was like 14.3 degrees different from the heads, which were perpendicular. So getting this bolt pattern for the throttle body was fairly easy. But where is that in relation to the head bolts? That's the complicated part. It's out further. It's not exactly in the middle, and it's canted at a different angle. So it gets extremely complicated now, where used to, it was very simple geometry.
They were all on the same
plane. Yeah.
So,
and of course, they're able now to, Harley is able, they're using the same type of software or same type of technologies to build the bikes. So it takes that type of hardware to be able to build parts for them. They're making them complicated, because they can, I guess, or for whatever reasons. That's not for me to say.
Oh, one other thing that we didn't mention as far as the testing is we get some pretty extreme weather variations here, and it's important to do testing in different weather, whether it's freezing or 100 degrees. And so we have that here, but we also, both of us, make trips around the country with our bikes and are able to test in different altitudes, different humidities, really dry weather. I remember going through a sandstorm in Arizona once where I thought for sure I'm going to have to get the bike repainted. The wind was so strong and there was so much sand blowing, and amazingly the paint held up and the clear held up, the Harley paint and clear held up, but all the other things that were on there, other parts like the air cleaners and things like that, all held up also. So, we put them through the test, temperature, humidity, dry, everything, sitting out in the sun. I remember when we first started making stuff with marine grade vinyl, I think it was the ECM covers for the sporties and then the fork boots and stuff like that. Before we even released those, we took that marine grade vinyl and literally clipped it to the outside of the building so we get sun, rain, snow, freezing, wind, to see how that would hold up. And we had 6 months worth of history, and we did it for 3 different pieces of vinyl. and one of the vinyls held up better than the other, and then that's what the vinyl that we ended up using. And I think that those are still clipped. I don't know.
I know the one was there about 3 months ago. I don't know if it is there today. But.
Yeah. So, I mean, we do a lot of testing. If we put out parts that continually fail with our lifetime warranty, we'd be out of business. You can know that we're only running parts that we run on our own bikes, and that we're designing them so that they will be there for a lifetime warranty and not have a problem.
So to talk a little bit more about making the parts easier to install, I mean, that's a multifaceted thing. I mean, there's a multitude of different things. I mean, we're trying to design a part that's going to accomplish a goal, but also it has to be easy to install. So in the design phase, we come up with a design that we want to try to do, and then we'll install it and see how it goes with the customer installing it in mind. And then as I'm trying to make something fit just perfect, I seem to be kind of OCD about that. I'll have installed and uninstalled the part on my personal bike, many times. I don't know, 10, 20, 30, sometimes more, especially with the shocks. But anyway, and in doing that, I may have an idea, a brain fart, as I call them, well, if we did this, it would be so much easier to get to this or to install this. And that's a part of it. But also, no small part is the instructions. And you can talk about that for a minute.
Yeah. Well, from the beginning, we would sit down and write the instructions together, because we knew that a lot of times, the same as us, we'd be getting the part would be there when we get home from work, and then, we're going to eat dinner and then go out to the shop and install the part. And if it's 10 o'clock at night and we're trying to install a part we got with incomplete or vague or even wrong instructions, there's nobody to call or get an email answer from at 10 o'clock at night. We knew that the instructions had to be complete and answer every possible question, so that a person could take those instructions and follow them and get it installed and not have to be frustrated with them being incomplete. Maybe they meant this, maybe they meant that. We try to be OCD with our instructions and have everything, every possible question that a person would ask already answered in the instructions. And then that way that takes lowers the frustration for the customer, and it reduces the amount of phone calls and emails we get asking a question. We still get phone calls and emails sometimes. And if we get very many phone calls or emails asking a question about a certain part, we will realize we need to have, that's something where we fell short in the instructions, and we need to modify the instructions to answer this question so the customer doesn't have to call or email. So that's just a huge part of our product development, is not only having parts that are easy to install, but having instructions that are complete and answer every question.
Basically, this the customer's experience. We want a great one, and that includes installing the part, not just enjoying it after it is.
Right, yeah. I hope that gave you a little bit of a feel for how we develop parts, why we develop parts, what we want to accomplish developing parts, and a couple little side notes here that Devin doesn't know I'm going to bring up. One is, we have a video that we did quite a few years back about how DK started. I'm going to put a link to that in the corner up there, and it actually shows some drone footage of the first building, which was the house that you were renting, that the first parts from DK were made in. But then the other thing is, Dwayne and I made videos for years and years, and people go, "Where's Devin? Where's Devin?" Devin doesn't want to be in the videos. He's busy making parts, which he heads up all the manufacturing. When you have 1,000 SKUs, that some of the SKUs have 15 or 20 parts. I mean, it's probably over 10,000 parts that he's responsible and has to keep track of to make sure none of them run out so that we can ship them. That's a huge, huge load. But you've seen he's been in a few videos so far, and he's going to be in more videos in the future. And so if there's something that you want to see us talk about in the future, the two of us together, the D and the K from DK Custom Products, put it down in the description below, and we'll see if we can make a video on that in the future.
So do us a favor, like, comment, subscribe, and y'all ride safe out there.